All right, let's turn to Adriana Diaz now.
Adriana, what exactly is your location?
I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is the New River behind me, and it leads about 10 to 20 miles this way to an inlet that leads to the Atlantic.
So, it looks like the water's already pretty high where you are. Is the expectation that this river is probably going to overflow its banks?
Absolutely. Where I'm standing, this dock is going to be underwater. That's what officials tell us. It's going to be the earliest areas, one of the earliest areas to flood. We went out on the water yesterday with wildlife officers who were just looking for hazards on the waterways. And they told me that even though this isn't that choppy yet, and yesterday it was even less choppy, yesterday there were just some ripples. They said normally this water is as smooth as glass. So just imagine the difference that it is and what's had to happen to start creating this movement. I mean, you can see the wind right here. This really wasn't moving much when we were here yesterday, and just in the past few hours, the wind has really started to pick up. It's been drizzling just a little bit. That's why I have this rain jacket on, but that's been off and on. But you can tell things are starting to change.
So we know that the hurricane has been weakened to a Category 2. Does that lessen the threat of storm surge for the river that is behind you there?
Well, even though it's lessened to a Category 2, so those are still sustained winds of about 110 miles per hour. The problem with this storm is that the wind field has actually widened. So officials believe that will make storm surge worse than it was before. So they're expecting up to 13 feet in some parts of the region. And that is made even worse by the more than 20 inches of rain that's also expected.
So what about, it's hard to tell if there are homes in the area from what we see right there, but are there homes in the area? And the residents that live in that area, have they been told to leave, or what's their situation?
Right. So we're in Onslow County. There's a mandatory evacuation here, but we were moving around and we saw people that were still outside their homes. Some people are boarding up, but others looked like they planned to stay. We spoke to someone who was actually working on his sailboat and getting the sail down to try to minimize movement when the storm does come. That sailboat is anchored away from homes, and that person told us that they plan to stay. He said, I hate to say that the news media cries wolf, but he said in his experience, every storm's the biggest storm. And he says, and then the storm comes and goes, and it's not the biggest storm. So he's hedging his bets. He's rolling the dice. He's staying home. I said, well, officials say you have to get out of here. He said, well, I'm taking responsibility for myself and my family. And he said that storm is moving relatively slowly, and I think I'll be able to outrun it in my car if it comes to the point where it looks like it's coming this way and they still have to get out of Dodge. So that's what one person told us. We've encountered several people who are staying. Some people want to keep an eye on their properties. Some people want to be not too far from their boats. Some people don't think it's going to be that bad. Whatever the reason, officials don't agree. They want everybody out of here, but that's not the case.
I just do not get people. What's taking a couple days off and getting out of town? I mean, I know it's a bit of a hassle, but
yeah, especially if you have children.
Yeah.
Also you're in an area there. Sorry, Adriana, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the gentleman I spoke to said, it's not just a couple of days. You get out of town, you may not be able to come back for weeks. Widespread power outages are also expected. 3 million homes and businesses may be without power. So not that staying home will affect the fact that you may lose power, but leaving, for some people, they think that it might extend the amount of time that it will take them to get back.
You're also in an area that has a number of military bases, Adriana. How are they preparing?
That's right. Camp Lejeune is just in this area. Fort Bragg is also in North Carolina. Here in Camp Lejeune, there are an estimated 10,000 active military members, mostly Marines, that live on base. They did not require a mandatory evacuation, though many Marines did leave. We spoke to one military wife who is probably right now on the road making her way to Boston from all the way down in North Carolina. But others are staying. My colleague, Mark Cooper, spoke to a gentleman who is staying. He says he's not too concerned. The head of Camp Lejeune said that they are prepared. They have food. They have preparations. They will be able to protect the servicemen and women who are going to stay there. So that is, of course, a concern. In Virginia, they also have to deal with enormous Navy ships. And so what they did a few days ago was they actually moved those out to the Atlantic, where they're going to be safer from this storm than in the ports.
All right, Adriana Diaz reporting from Jacksonville, North Carolina. Adriana, as always, we thank you. We'll check back in with you a little later.